Welcome to the Runna Podcast. I'm Coach Anya, an international marathon runner.
And I'm Coach Ben, and one of the co-founders of Runna.
Each week we'll be deep diving into the world of running, speaking to some inspiring individuals about their running journeys.
Runna is the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide. We help hundreds of thousands of people all over the world train for any running goal. And if you want to try out Runna for free, you can try it out using the code Runna Podcast, all one word, to get 2 weeks of free access to the Runna app.
Today on the podcast, we have a super inspiring guest, Lewis Robling. Lewis is an ex-professional rugby player turned ultramarathon runner. Lewis founded Why We Run, an ultramarathon event raising awareness for mental health after his own mental health journey. We're going to be talking about his transition from rugby to running and all of his amazing achievements as an endurance runner. Really excited to get into the conversation.
Right, so Lewis.
Hello.
Ultramarathon runner, ex-professional rugby player, Ironman, and probably the most emotionally intelligent man I've ever met. What have we missed?
I mean, now I'm under pressure. I mean, what was nice to, like, the Ironman threw me then, because that was only 2 weeks ago. It hasn't really sunk in yet. But yeah, no, I think you've got me.
What, so I guess kind of going back to the start, what got you moving in the first place? What got you to start all of these many adventures?
That's a big question. So I'll probably start with the rugby, and I'll go back to a lockdown really. Like anyone else, everyone started running in lockdown. There's nothing else to do, and I recently retired from playing professional sport in the March. In fact, the last game of rugby I ever played, we got thumped by Newcastle Falcons 40-0, so that was a way to retire. But at least, like, it was on my own terms, and COVID was enough of an excuse for me to be like, okay, that's it, I'm done. Like, I think I was flogging a dead horse for a few years, thinking about moving away from the sport, trying to find something different. In fact, at the time, my initial escape route was an e-commerce brand selling coconut balls, where I went to Bali, a stereotypical rugby player, and came back a spiritual vegan. So selling coconut balls was the initial escape route, but lockdown came about and the world shut down, as you know, and started running. And from that kind of day-to-day running to ease the thoughts in my mind, and running for, not that I was aware of that at the time. I don't think I was aware that I was using running as a tool to kind of turn the volume down a little bit on like who I was at that time. But yeah, it just went from there really. The first challenge I did was the 4:4:48 by David Goggins, which kind of really opened up this world of like, wow, like I'm capable of doing something like this. Like, and I raised money during that weekend as well, for Alzheimer's. Sad story, Steph was meant to run the marathon during that time for her granddad who suffered with Alzheimer's, and sadly he passed away. So I wanted to do something to give back, and I was running every day. It was the only real tool that we had to move and exercise, and being someone that was so used to training 2-3 times a day as a professional athlete, running was something I really turned to, and that, yeah, I think I raised 10 grand in 2 days, and encouraged this kind of virtual running, because it was running 4 miles every 4 hours, 48 hours. And that was my first taste of, and again, I don't think I was aware that I was doing that at the time. I knew I had the goal. The goal was to run the 4:4:48, because I was, again, no awareness, but semi-running away from the pain of the day-to-day, of being at my laptop all day, a bit lonely, and kind of not succeeded in the way that I thought I would. But I'm going to stop talking, because I'll get carried away and just give you the blur without giving you the opportunity to say anything. But
We'll go back to the start in a minute, but I guess, like, when you started with the running, and you did this 4:4:48 challenge to raise money, did you ever imagine it would go on to many ultramarathons and doing everything you do now? Or was it like, do this one thing, raise some money for charity, do something hard, and stop running? Like, what was...
Yeah, for sure. It was the one thing. And I think at the time, the 4:4:48 was my first introduction to David Goggins. So I read the book, Can't Hurt Me. And that was like my first understanding of what an ultramarathon even was. I didn't know anything existed past a marathon. So reading that book, and also hearing his story, and very much not relating to his story, but relating to some of the struggles and to being inspired by some of the pain that he felt, but also how he overcame it through sport, through running, through doing hard things. And I think that opened my eyes to, okay, maybe I'm capable a bit more. And then the 4:4:48 was that introduction to that world. But I had no idea what an ultramarathon was at that point, really. And it was only by chance that a few months later, Hannah Tarsley, who we both know very well, who's one of the best humans, she knew Steph, and I didn't know Hannah. but she saw that I did the full 4:48, and that was the introduction to Ultra X. So she then said, "Oh, Steph, does Lou fancy a challenge?" And I'm like, yeah, I again, no awareness, but I needed that to focus my attention on something other than coconuts.
And filling the physical void, having left rugby.
And filling that physical void. When she reached out to me, actually, it was only 4.5 weeks before the Ultra X event, and it was 125 kilometers over 2 days. And I mean, I'd never eaten and run before. The longest I'd ran was a half marathon in one go. Obviously, you've done the 4:48, which is 48 miles over 2 days, which is still a great feat. But the last time I did a half marathon, I think I injured my ankle. I had 4 weeks off running. So like, for me to have the audacity and what's the quote? Naive enough to start, stubborn enough to finish. That's very much how that race went. And little did I know it was a lot. It meant a lot more to me than I actually realized it did at the time. I thought it was just I needed this challenge, and I was so driven by the emotional attachment to it rather than any conscious thought. There was no proactive thinking as to, oh yeah, ultramarathons are going to change my life. This is going to happen. The next 3 years are going to look like this. It was very much, I need this right now because I'm hurting. And the sad part is I probably also look to it as a way to, it's a semi-sadistic in a way, because I look back at my rugby career, and I've said this a few times, and I look back at my career and I felt like I'd failed. I had so much potential. I had so much, like, I had so many choices to make different decisions that probably would have benefited my rugby career, and I didn't make those decisions throughout those parts of my career for specific reasons, which I'm absolutely okay with now. And there was a lot of work that I need to forgive myself for, but this was only kind of in retrospect, I suppose. But no, that ultramarathon, I had 4.5 weeks to train, and it was just the most life-changing experience.
And you've gone on to become a running coach.
Yes.
If you had a client who's never ran more than a half marathon and says, I have to run 125 kilometers in 4 weeks' time, what would you tell them?
Tell them, no, absolutely not. But that's only, it's a real juxtaposition, because it was reckless for me to say yes to that event. Yet I feel like that was my most profound experience in an ultra, and this is reckless even talking about it in a way, but it was my experience, and this is what happened to me. And also, I don't want to come across in an arrogant way at all, but I'm not your average human.
You had a career of rugby, fitness, strength and conditioning behind you. Yeah,
for sure. And my body was used to that. My body was used to that stress. It was used to kind of being hit by a bus every Saturday and having to recover from it, like ready for the Tuesday to go again and again and again. So my body was used to that stress, and psychologically I was used to that stress as well. And I think applying it in this way to an ultramarathon was obviously a brand new experience, and it broke me. I didn't run for 2 months, 3 months afterwards, but I was willing to accept that cost. Like I knew that I was ready. It meant more to me to finish that race, because I tore my calf on day one. I don't know how, but day two I ran 50k on a torn calf. I still to this day have no idea, but there was this relentless, and this speaks to the pain that I was feeling and how I was kind of trying to work out and trying to make up for the fact that I didn't ever make it as a rugby player as I thought I should or could. Yeah. So anyway, that became, those 2 days became profound in so many ways, because it felt like I'd opened my eyes for the first time. I said, okay, I am good enough. I can do this. Like, what else can I do? And the feeling crossing that finish line, I'd never been so openly emotional in front of people before. I crossed the finish line and I cried my eyes out, and I've never ever felt that before. And it was almost like that emotion was pent up from 15 years of rugby.
I've only known you as an ultramarathon runner. I think I met you probably a year after this David Goggins journey. And like I said at the start, you're a very, I think, emotionally aware person. Is that something that you've learned through spending time on your own running, or have you always been like that?
I think I've learned a hell of a lot more.
Because it's very it's not the typical vibe of rugby lads. Do you see what I mean?
No, I don't think I was ever the typical rugby lad. But I molded myself into someone that was. So I think I never really expressed my true self as a rugby player. So there was almost like a version of me inside, my authentic self within me inside, that never really came out, or was never allowed to express himself out of fear of being shut down. And look, I don't want to talk negatively about rugby, because I am the person I am today because of it. I loved the team mentality, the willingness to put your body on your line for your teammates, that winning together, losing together. But ultramarathon running, has elements of that, but where I needed to learn the lesson was the self-empowerment, the fact that I was the only one responsible as to whether I won or lost. And that first experience of UltraX England gave me that. It's funny because with a game of rugby, you could have the best game of your life, but still lose, and vice versa. So there's like a really strange idea of what success is. But with ultramarathons, you are the one that defines what success means, and you're ultimately the only one that will get yourself to the finish line. Yes, you can have support and there's help from other people to lift you and guide you, but you're the one that walks through the door.
Well, I think that's the case across running in all areas, which is that like doing 1,000 people go to Bushy Park and do park run every Saturday, but there isn't only one person that wins. I would say that probably 99% of people who turn up to park run go home feeling like they won their Saturday morning.
Oh, big time.
And it's because I think that like running as a sport, it's about beating yourself and having a personal victory, and like therefore we get the satisfaction and the happiness out of that, versus like maybe a big part of the satisfaction at the end of a rugby match is to the team that won.
No, it's very true. And that's where my point on like you have the ability to define what success means to you. So there's no pressure really, other than the pressure that you put on yourself, and becoming aware to that pressure. And this is where the self like development, the self-awareness of like what it means to you to be successful comes from. And I think that's why, again, endurance sport, and people turn to endurance sports so much to like learn about themselves, which I'm sure you guys see from your community as well.
If you look at your London Marathon, you didn't win, but it's presumably one of your proudest achievements of your life.
Absolutely.
And like, I think that's the exact same point.
Do you think you didn't have the same self-awareness in rugby that you do now?
Not at all. Because that the idea that you speak about your feelings like as a man in that masculine environment, that you don't say you're struggling, because that's a sign of weakness. Like if a coach or if teammates pick up on that, then you're not fit to play on the weekend because you're not going to make the best decision for the team. You're not going
to pass to you, or
you're not going to perform as well as you could because you're soft. But I think that was done, and ultimately the ultramarathon that I ran in September for UltraX, that was amazing in that it opened my eyes to what I could do physically, mentally, how far I could manage adversity and keep moving forward. Like, it was insane. But ultimately, nothing changed. Like, I came back home, I sat at my desk, started trying to sell coconuts again, and I was on my own. I had no one around me. What actually changed? Yeah, okay, I ran a race. Like, I ran this amazing race and I proved so many things, but ultimately I didn't do anything about it. And that's when things got a little bit harder at home, because it came to the realization that nothing changed and I was still feeling the same things, and I couldn't see a way out. And that's when, luckily, Big Moose were there to kind of hold my hand. And I asked for help, which was harder because I'd never done that before. Like, really, in like, to be that vulnerable and to be that open, I felt naked, I felt completely like I exposed myself to the world of being weak, which is everything that I tried not to be as a rugby player. And it was only, and the irony is that I may have felt my weakest, but the action that I took was probably the strongest I'd ever taken.
So Big Moose, June, is an amazing charity. You've gone on to support them in many ways, and we did our first Runna Mental Health Marathon supporting them. Tell us about Big Moose and what they did and what they did for you.
So Big Moose, I knew Jeff and Chloe, who were the founders. We met them in 2018. They invited Steph to go to have a coffee in the coffee shop, and we met Chloe. And once we met Chloe, had the story, that was it. We were in. Whatever they were doing, we were going to support them. But it was only after that time they started to use their profits to pay for therapy for those that need it. Graham was the first therapist that they brought on board. And within the first month of him working for Big Moose, 5 people said that he'd saved their lives. And that was very much a light bulb moment for both Jeff and Chloe, and they realized, okay, this is where our support needs to go, into providing people with therapy. So, and Graham was the one that Chloe signposted me to, and Graham was the one that helped me really turn my life around. It was only when I started to open Pandora's box and start to confront the real problem, which was me, that things started to change. And it was actually really amazing how quickly things started to change. I mean, I reference it every now and again, but like I'm not sure if you read The Secret, or like the old idea, right? Your vibe attracts your tribe, all that, or the energy that you put out is the energy you get in return. And simply from starting to become aware and opening Pandora's box and acting in a way that maybe represented change, things started to happen. Like, I met you in January, big change, new environment, opportunities came from different areas, but it was all based on like the changes I was making to help myself. And ultimately, I decided that ultra running, I wanted it to be like a huge part of my life, because of the experience that I had. And I knew I loved sport. I started to become aware of like my values. I started to become aware of what I did when, even when kind of there was stress and there was like everything going on. What were the things that I really valued that I continued to do? And sport and running and movement was the biggest part of it. And I wanted to dive back into that world. So 2021 became, instead of running away from these feelings that I was feeling, it was okay, I'm going to use ultra running to run towards them. Let's find out who I really am in this controlled environment. And when you think about training for a marathon, half marathon, ultra marathon, what does it take to actually get to that start line? How do you become your best self? And there's so many different ways you have to look after your health. Like, you have to dial back in your nutrition. Like, the idea that you're constantly going to be kind of moving the needle and working hard in interval sessions, and there's constant like little moments of resilience that you're building throughout the process. And by the time you get to that start line, the race is a celebration. Like, you've done the work, you've become the person that you are striving to become on that start line. And so 2021 became race in January. I did another 125k with UltraX again, and I'm really grateful to UltraX. Like, I wouldn't be here talking to you if it wasn't for those guys and their support as well. So it's worth saying that. I did UltraX Scotland in May, and then in August was my first ever 250k ultramarathon. So I kind of went from zero to hero. Yeah. And again, that's not something I'd advise, but based on what my body was capable of doing and how quickly I was recovering, I felt like I could do it, and self-belief is obviously a huge part of it as well. But what was interesting to me after that first, and part of why I'm saying this is because that first year was very much a year for me. Yeah. It was like I needed to get over my rugby career, essentially. That's what it was all about, and it was about proving to myself that I was capable and I was enough. And after, I remember the feeling specifically after the first 250k, and again, it was the most savage experience. It was brutal in every single sense of the word, beautifully brutal. But I remember taking a deep breath after that event, and it's almost like I could just, okay, I'm good now. Yeah. I don't have to prove myself to anyone else. It was a really real turning point in like who I became, and it was almost, I gave myself permission to accept, okay, I'm good now.
It was so crazy. Like, I didn't play sport to the same level as you, but I felt like when I was playing hockey and team sports, I was totally running on autopilot. And then it wasn't until I found running that I genuinely did start like being true to myself, and like it did open my eyes up to like, yeah, your values and what really makes me feel good. So I massively understand that.
I guess, like, speaking of kind of like doing the work, January, during the turning point, to like really give context on like where you've gotten from and to, like, I met you in January. We were both doing the same virtual 50-kilometer race in the lockdown. So it was this set up by UltraX 50k virtual run where you had to run 50 kilometers and run up 1,200 meters of elevation, and you could do any route you liked. Yeah. I was doing it the week before Lewis. You had to do it over like a fortnight, so I did it the week before. And I'd never met Lewis, and he kindly came to like pace me and a friend, Will Googe, at the time. And basically I'd picked this route where you run up a really steep hill in Richmond, the steepest hill in London, and then you did a really long, slow, steady downhill. So you basically got massive benefit and then steep uphill. And it was like 35 loops of this route with 35 steep hill repeats. And like this crazy man turns up to like support and pace Will and I, and during Pass Us Our Bananas and whatever, we connected on that day. Then a week later, he's like, well, actually, I'm going to do it too. And so then he ran 35 loops of the same route. So then I got to kind of support you back. We both did the 250-kilometer event in Sri Lanka.
Oh, man.
To speak for how tough it was, like I lost 8 toenails we saw the crocodiles, lions, I think 53% of the starters finished, because of how tough it was, how humid it was, and everything else.
Might have been even less.
I think I remember 47% dropping out, but who knows? It was savage.
Yeah.
And that was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now you're running your own ultramarathon to support Big Moose, to help people feel what you felt. Yeah. And it's in its third iteration coming up this September. Yeah. That is like the real testament to how far you've come with this, which is just incredible. Tell us about Why We Run.
Why We Run is kind of, it was a complete accident. And to kind of talk a little bit about Sri Lanka was like it wasn't even a race, it was like survival. Like, because it was 39 degrees, 100% humidity, like to run in those temperatures. I mean, I got chased by buffalo on day 4, like Ben, and I've never seen someone run so hard at the blocks on day 1 in my life. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
We had the opposite experience. That I think Lewis, so it was my first ever ultramarathon, and I was basically there supporting Lewis and about 11 of our other runners that had trained with the earliest version of Run, which was called the Run Buddy. And I was there being like, well, this is going to be fun, and wore carbon shoes on day 1 and kind of came third on day 1, lost 8 toenails and then regretted it every day. Whereas I've never seen someone do the most incredible pacing of an ultramarathon where every day Lewis got stronger. I think you probably finished day 1 in 10th or 15th, and each day you climbed the ladder, and I think by the end you came 6th or 7th, and it was
similar.
I probably doing a disservice. Maybe it was 5. You correct me, but like amazing, it was so fun. Just every day, just seeing like basically Lewis would overtake me at like the third aid station each day because I would run so fast, and then be like, well, this is hot.
But you did the comeback on day 5. You had a good day. Day 5.
I did. There was one day where I thought I was going to collapse, and I basically sat on a rock until a local came back with a machete, cut the end of my cut the end of my shoes off. To make my running shoes into sandals to give my toes a bit of space, and then ran the last 10k basically at 4-minute kilometers, singing on the Mia out loud, ran through the last aid station, screaming, singing along, didn't stop for water. Whereas you did it the right way, trained really hard, paced really well.
Well, that was actually the first of 5 250Ks that year. That was part of, so after I'd done Wales in 2021, I felt like I was at a point in my life where now I can give back to Big Moose, like for all the help they've given me, and I continue to go back to therapy with them all the time. So the fact that they're there, I want to be able to give back. So 2022 was the year to give back to Big Moose, and that was 5 250k race. I spoke to UltraX. Has anyone ever done all 5 of your 250k races in a year before? I said, no, that's stupid. I said, can I try? And they were very kind to provide the race entry for each race. So we started in Sri Lanka, then it was the World Championships in Slovenia, back to Wales again in August, which was a very different experience. Like the first year was like the temperature was wet and miserable, whereas the second time I did it was 34 degrees all week. So that was interesting. It's probably the hardest one I've ever done.
That's the one where you got lost one day and ran like 20k too far, right?
That was the first time I did it. That was the 21. Okay. Yeah. And I almost did that again if it wasn't for Grant. Yeah. Same place I got lost as well. It's hilarious. The 4th race of the year was Ultra X Jordan, and then the 5th race was meant to be Ultra X Mexico. However, it was cancelled 8 weeks before the event, and my goal for the year was to raise £25,000 for Big Moose. And 8 weeks before Mexico, when it was cancelled, I'd only raised £6,000. So therein, like the chaos, there was the opportunity, I suppose, to because I don't think I said I was going to do 5 250Ks, and I think it was important to me that I did the 5 250Ks, whether I did it outside the door and ran loops every single day, or whether we put on an event. Like, it was important to me to do that. And Renee McGregor at the time was meant to be doing Ultra X Mexico, and I asked Renee, I said, what do you think? Like, should we just put something on? And her answer was yes, as mine was, and managed to find a campsite in the middle of Bradford-on-Avon. That was one of Renee's contacts. It would have been the first week in November, so they opened the campsite for us, even though the season was shut. I think I paid for one of the cabins, and he said, if you pay one of the cabins for the week, then you can have the whole site. I was like, great, okay, sorted, happy to do that. And then I asked for help. I asked Instagram for help this time, and so there's a message there, right? But I asked Instagram for help, and 17 other runners decided that they wanted to join in on the challenge. And the idea was that everyone set up their own Just Giving page, and we created this team effort to raise the money together. It wasn't just about me now, it was about a team collective. And we camped. Some people slept outside the whole time, which was hilarious. At first week in November, it was pissing down with rain. We had outbursts of sun, but it was cold, it was wet, it was horrible, it was gritty. The word is gritty. Yet people didn't want to leave. I've never seen so much pain and joy exist in one environment. It was just it's special. Like Jeff and Chloe were there, the founders of the charity. We had 2 medics, the same setup as what an Ultrex 250k would be. Sam Heward was the race director for the event. So all of a sudden we've got this community that's come together and created something that we called Why We Run, because it was always about why we were doing it. Like, if I think back to why I even decided to put this challenge on the first place, it was because Big Moose was there to help. It was like support. It was about people. And that's kind of the theme of Why We Run, is about people. But anyway, yeah, 3 years later, we're about to put on our 3rd event this year. We've got about 47 runners signed up, all doing the 250k. The first year we raised 22 grand. The second year we raised 36 grand. And hoping this year we're going to have kind of 6 figures raised for Big Moose in 3 years, which would be a real milestone for me. And that, I mean, to put it into context, what that means from like a money raised perspective, £100 pays for an hour of therapy. And Jeff has worked out some calculations that basically for every 25 people that go through a full course of therapy, it works out of like saving one person's life. So if you think about the amount of money we've raised over the last 2 years and how many lives, it works out about 6 lives that we've saved. And that, I feel it's a really strange thing to say, because how accurate that is, I don't know. But like the fact that we've raised enough as a team, as a brand to give back to people in the way like that, like 6 lives. That's insane.
And you're also doing that while at the same time probably improving all of the lives of your own at the same time.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, we're running for ourselves, but we're running for a purpose bigger than ourselves. And I think the values of the brand really kind of speak volumes about what the environment encapsulates. And it's purpose, like just the slogan, I suppose. It's purpose beyond yourself, power and human connection, pursuits past physical and mental limits, together as one. Why we run. And each pillar, like, I think, because we were chatting a little bit beforehand about where Why We Run is going to go, and I think that the event will remain a mainstay of the year. It's the celebration, it's where it all started, it's the founding principle of Why We Run. But where we move now is, well, so long as we tick those 4 boxes, then it could become anything, and I have no idea what it's going to become. But I'm really proud of the people that, and like I've been kind of able to put this together, but I'm proud of what we're creating. I'm proud of like the impact that we're having on the world. And like you said, it does change people's lives. Like the feedback that we've had from the runners that have run the event and what they've experienced, it's
Yeah, I watched your docu-film that you made from the last Why We Ran, and it was one of the most emotional things ever. But you showed some of the people that ran in the first Why We Ran, and then they did it again the second one, and how it has changed their lives and how they have been able to like live out their aspirations and, you know, look after themselves and their well-being. And yeah, you must be so proud. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's not just me. It just happens that I accidentally had the idea out of necessity. So yeah, no, I'm super proud, and it kind of is testament to what endurance sports and how endurance sports helps people from like such a broad perspective, as we've touched on already.
So I guess this is the 3rd iteration, and probably by the time this podcast comes out, we shouldn't be encouraging people to go from where they are today to a 250-kilometer ultramarathon in a month or 2. But will you do a 4th one, and how would someone find it and sign up?
Yeah, so the plan is that registrations will, I'm putting myself on the spot here, but the plan is that registrations will open up pretty soon after the event is over. When the event this year is the 23rd to the 29th of September, so we're hoping to kind of share all of it on social. So if you do follow Why We Run, then great, you'll see it all unfold as it happens. And we're hoping to produce another film as well this year with the theme of kind of women in running. And again, I put myself on the spot by saying this out loud because it's not all sorted yet, but I'm committed to shedding light on a part of the world that needs light, because I think only at the moment only 36.5% of runners in the trail world are female. Yet each year we've had a positive representation of women at Why We Run. And one, I want to understand why, but also want to celebrate that fact and celebrate like women in sport. So anyway, yeah, I'll get off my high Miss World.
Well, no, I think it's a very important thing, and I think I don't know if it's you as a personality, that compassion means that, you resonate more to everyone, and that brings women into training that way, or what it is. It's something that we want to make sure we do at Runna, and we're very lucky to see that like 60% of our runners are female as well, and maybe it's this coexisting ecosystem that we get to sit within, but the more we can all help support women, the better.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, no, very exciting. And to anyone listening, hopefully we've inspired you to even check it out for next year. Shall we spin our way onto Steph's tip of the week, and then we will come back with some slightly more sillier and light-hearted conversation in the second half.
My top tip today is to mix up the terrain you're running on. When we run on the road, our feet travel in a straight line, whereas on the trails, we're kind of forced to change direction. Running on a variety of terrain is great for multi-directional load. We aren't loading the same joints in the same direction all the time. The softer terrain is also just kinder on the body and helps reduce our injury risk. So why don't you try some of your easy runs in different areas, go to new parks, new places, and mix it up. Variety is great.
Thank you very much for that, Steph. So we are back in the podcast and we are going to debunk a question from you guys. And this week we're going to talk about, should you stretch before you run? And I'd love to know both of your opinions on this. But yeah.
Yeah, so I guess there's two different types of stretching. We can do what's called static stretching, which is where we'd stand still, imagine you're stretching your quads, so you're pulling your heel towards your bum and doing a quad stretch. Typically, that's not a great thing to do before we run, because what we'll do is we'll lengthen the muscle, which will actually potentially increase the risk of injury. You'll relatively change your biomechanics slightly. But so instead, what we want to be doing is warming up our muscles, creating some movement. So doing what's called dynamic stretching. So a way to, stretch the body or work to the range of motion while creating some movement. So for example, if you wanted to warm up your hamstrings, rather than putting your leg up in the air and holding that stretch for a while, you could do some leg swings. So my advice would be to warm up with some light exercise, get your heart rate racing, but at the same time to work through your range of motion with dynamic stretching, and then to save the static stretching for after your exercise. Mm-hmm. So anything you guys would add to that myth?
No, I think you've covered it. I think for me, stretching, if it depends on what the session looks like as well. So for example, if you're going out for an easy run or an endurance run where you're not really going to be picking up the intensity, in fact, the warm-up really is the first 10 minutes of easy running. Like you don't need to, in my way, you don't really need to stretch before that. But if you were to go into run a tempo session or an interval session where the body would be required to kind of work a little bit harder and more aggressively, then I think what Ben said is perfect.
Nice. Good. Well, I'm glad that we agree with each other. Well, we are going to come on to maybe our favourite piece of the podcast, which is some this or that. So I'm going to start off with an Ironman related one, given that you did your first full Ironman 2 weeks ago, which is incredible. And just before we do, how are you feeling?
Surprisingly great. I feel good. I mean, great on many levels, because it was the most incredible experience. As you'll know, you know what it feels like to finish an Ironman.
I mean, I was very proud seeing all the videos and seeing you do it, because Juni's built up over the last few years with half Ironman and doing the full one is just another feat.
Yeah, and what surprised me was how different it was to the half as well. Like it's another level up. And I think I underestimated how my body would feel after spending 6 hours on the bike.
And how does it feel to someone who can't imagine that?
Okay, the best analogy that I've thought of from a pain and an effort level perspective is that imagine you're driving a car and you're on the rev limit of 7,500 to 8,000 revs, and you're kind of and the pain and the effort, you're constantly flirting with that limit, and that's how it feels, right? From a muscular endurance perspective, from like a fatigue perspective, from how
achy you get.
As
in you've got to sit on a saddle, which aren't that comfortable like the sofas aren't made like bike saddles for a reason. And then you're bent over like your back, and then you're sick of eating the gross sugary snacks and whatever. And you've got to do all that, and then you got to put your bike away, take off your helmet, swap your shoes, and then run a marathon.
Do you know that the running was a relief because I found the bike that hard. Yeah. The running was actually I couldn't wait to get off the bike and actually run.
You went out hot though in the run. There was a bit halfway. I saw a video from Steph.
I went out a little bit too hot.
Struggling.
Yeah, well, again, I think this is like a first experience. The only kind of expectation that I had was I wanted to give everything to this race, and I think I probably got my pacing wrong on the run. I went out thinking I would feel the same as I would after I did on the half Ironman. On the half Ironman, I had the most unbelievable run of my life. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, And so I tried to go at the same level of effort for the Ironman, and I held on for maybe 4 or 5K, and then you realize very quickly that your body just does not have the energy. All of your glycogen stores, all of the muscle fatigue, the neuromuscular connections, everything is just fading slowly. So the pace just kind of slowed down. And it wasn't through lack of effort either. It wasn't through like I was trying my hardest the whole time, and it became just holding on for dear life. And you did that for maybe 24K, which meant, though, as you know as well, that the finish line was the most euphoric, relieving feeling. And you run through the big arch. So the finish line is usually about 80 meters long.
Of like red carpet.
Yeah.
As if you're like
carpet. Yeah.
a superstar.
Yeah. And like crowds either side, music blaring, and the big first banner like running through it. I remember looking up and seeing "You Are an Ironman." And as I looked up, because they're tracking you with your bib numbers and stuff, all I heard on the speaker was, "Lewis Robling, you are an Ironman." And then it sinks in, then the goosebumps and the electricity that you're feeling, just like all pain vanishes. Your body just disconnects, and all you've got is euphoria. Like it's.
I just got tingles.
Yeah, I would have
thinking about
it. And then you've got 80 meters that feels like in the moment it feels like it's lasting forever, but then you think back and like it's just gone.
I cry like once a year, and it's about a minute after I finish my Ironman of the year.
Yeah, but that's how it feels. And I felt when I got through the main arch, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had all this like pent up like emotion, and I just channeled it into the punch, and I just punched the air, almost dislocating my shoulder. And then it hits you, the realization, like,
what you've just done. Yeah.
I've just done that. But also everything went right, and the only limit to my performance was like me. So nothing got in the way of like me being able to express myself in a way I wanted to. So it was just, it was. Sorry, I've gone off.
No, that was. And before I ask you a silly question, since we last recorded, Anya, you've done your first half Ironman.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
How did that go? And tell us about how that went.
It was so good. It was so amazing. And I'd do another one in a heartbeat. But I straight away said when I finished, I was like, I'm never doing a full Ironman. We actually watched the people finishing the full Ironman, and there is like nothing behind their eyes. Like it is it's completely different thing.
My dad calls it zombie mode. So my dad's cheered me on at 2 of mine. And he's like, there's a point in the run, maybe like halfway around, where you just watch zombies, just like, and there's a video he filmed of me running past him on my like second Ironman, I think it was, and I didn't see him, but like there's no one there, like it's literally me, like it's not like a London marathon where there's people everywhere. It's literally like my dad cheering me on, and I'm just like running in a straight line. I can't quite see what's going on.
It's mad.
I will do a full one though. I say I won't, but I will.
But you
said
said the step up from a half to the full is like a different level. I would always describe it as going from a half to a full isn't twice as hard. I would always say it's 4 times as hard. Yeah. And I'd say it's a similar difficulty jump from going from a half marathon to a marathon. I think that's like, I would say that's 4 times as hard. And I would say it's a similar, that's the way I quantify it in my head anyway.
No, that makes sense.
That I think it is a different level of difficulty.
I would agree, because my expectation was I could just double my half Ironman time.
Yeah, and so many people are like, oh, I'll do a marathon. I could do a half marathon in an hour and a half, so 3 hours. I'm like, no, a 3-hour marathon is elite.
It has also very much inspired me to. I thought it'd be one and done with the Ironman, but it's probably, sorry, Steph, it's the opposite.
I am very proud to hear this, because
let's all do the same one.
Yeah, Ironman Wales next year. I've said it. Ironman Wales next year.
Ironman Wales will be hilly. I like the flat ones.
No, I want a hilly one.
Ironman Wales. Anya, you and I, Ironman Wales. Let's do it.
Well, if you're both doing it, I have to come. Right, okay. So the silly question I actually wanted to ask you.
Okay, sorry, my fault.
Would you rather run an Ironman in flip-flops, as in you finish your bike, take off your cycling shoes, and now run your marathon in flip-flops, or run an ultra-marathon in flip-flops?
I thought there was going to be a different variation on the flip-flops, and I was going to say, you already know that I would choose flip-flops. Ironman.
Why?
Think of the terrain.
Oh, because it's like tarmac a bit easier. Okay, well, let's build on it then.
Okay.
Why are you going to wear the flip-flops?
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, well, not the swim.
Yeah.
They'll float off the height.
That'd be cheating.
Okay, so you wear your flip-flops, you get out the swim, and rather than putting on your bike shoes, you put on your flip-flops, do the bike, and then you keep them on for the marathon. Do you still pick that over the ultra?
I still pick the Ironman. Yeah. Because I think the
So it's Ironman Wales with Anya. You both wear flip-flops.
Well, we're gonna get the sandals out, mate.
We'll launch some Runna flip-flops, and this will be the brand deal.
Carbon-plated flip-flops.
Yeah, carbon-plated flip-flops. I actually did. So there's like, I saw a YouTube video of someone running the world record for the fastest marathon in flip-flops, and it was like 2 hours 40 minutes or something ridiculous. I might be wrong, it was very, very fast. But I have an old pair of like carbon shoes that are kind of like on their way out, that I wonder if I cut all of the like top off and then self-built flip-flop. Is that legal as a flip-flop, or is that like a carbon shoe? Like, what's the definition?
I'm not a shoe technician.
Because you could have trail flip-flops, and then you might want them for your ultra.
Maybe. I'm not qualified to be having this conversation.
Okay, right.
But you are skilled. You have experience in creating your own shoes.
One thing I am skilled in is losing my toenails.
Yes.
Would you rather lose all your toenails or chafe your nipples off? And they both regrow.
Oh,
Just constant nipple chafe.
lose my toenails.
All 10.
Yeah. I think
Nice.
so.
That's 10v2.
Yeah, I'd rather lose my toenails.
Five times worse.
Yeah. No toenails, because I've seen people in the marathon with.
Yeah.
It doesn't look fun.
There's like paintball splatters.
Yeah, but I've lost my toenails and they're fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like losing mine.
Yeah.
Because they kind of die, and then they have to be like, then there comes a point where they kind of are half falling off. And
If you've seen my feet, then toenails or no toenails is not helping. So.
Quite a few ultramarathon runners who regularly lose their toenails will get them like frozen or burnt out so they don't regrow, which leaves some very funny looking feet, but they actually don't serve any purpose for us now that we don't like claw our way up trees as monkeys.
Yeah, I know a few
Or
people.
most of us don't like Lewis. He does some wild things.
Yeah, I've drawn a very long second time.
Okay, last one of these. Would you rather never be able to eat oats ever again, and you do like your oats in your coconut bowls, or never be able to run the Welsh coastal paths again?
Oats are going. Sorry.
Saying goodbye to the oats.
Yeah, I mean the Welsh coastal paths. Come on. If you've been down there, then it's an experience of a lifetime.
What's the current go-to breakfast?
It's been the same one for 6 years straight, and it's current cacao oats. So I have my oats, chia, flax seeds in the base.
Okay,
cook
so
that off nice and slowly.
Tomorrow, when you go and run your dreamland
don't do this to me.
along the Welsh coastal paths, what will you have for breakfast?
Granola.
Are there not oats in granola?
Maybe. I think they actually are, aren't they? What would I have for breakfast? Oh, God. This is a really tough question because I haven't done anything different for 6 years.
Because you could just have your cow oats and just run along the Scottish paths.
Yeah.
Scottish.
We said
It's a
Welsh.
long- it's a
There
long
are
way
still
to
other
go.
coastal paths.
I'm Welsh though, mate. What would I have for breakfast instead? Bran flakes.
Okay.
I'd do exactly the same thing.
Really
with
boring.
bran.
That is so boring.
So vanilla.
You'll be running along the coastal paths, be like,
There's
these are nice,
something
but I
really-
ate bran flakes for
There's
breakfast.
something really. Hey, look, bran flakes on their own, maybe, but there is something earthy about, like, nice about bran flakes on their own. I mean, maybe it's
What,
an
on their
acquired
own?
taste. On their with like oat milk or whatever. But
Oh, you can't have oat milk.
oh come on,
What? That's oats. That's literally oats.
coconut milk.
Coconut milk on bran flakes.
Yeah, with
I can't believe that. Oat milk, no. Oat milk comes from almonds. You should see, when I have almond milk, it comes straight from the oats.
these on the spot questions are not my vibe apparently. But yeah, it wouldn't just be. We'd definitely spice it up.
Wait, so you're having
Zhuzh it up
you're
with,
having almond milk with your bran flakes and chili?
No, maybe not chili. Do you know I did go through a phase of savoury oats and would use chili and turmeric and
Yeah.
in the oats.
I said savoury oats. There's a cafe called Otis in Notting Hill, which do like savoury
They're
oats.
quite underrated, aren't they?
Every oats.
Well, the next podcast we'll be tucking into some nice oats, and we'll try them out.
I even put tofu in it.
Gosh,
I know.
well, never, not tomorrow, not tomorrow on your Welsh trails.
Everything that I've said now is going to be kind of disregarded because I have tofu in my oats. I can't trust this guy.
Everyone's turned off. Okay, we're going to go on to our runner story of the week, and we've got an embarrassing story this week. So I'd love your guys' reaction. Okay, I was 10 kilometres away from the end of my 30-kilometre long run, and it was raining hard. I felt a gentle rumble in my tummy. I think we all know where this is going. A second rumble became a fart. Not even 1.5k later, I was deep into contractions. It was not yet spring, so there was no shrubbery to use in place of toilet paper. I ended up stopping in the middle of nowhere, took off my t-shirt to clean myself up, threw my t-shirt in the nearest bin and had to continue my run home with just my waterproof jacket on. The worst nipple chafe ever.
That just got worse and worse and worse.
Wow.
Yeah, you think it couldn't get any worse, and then it's the nipple chafe.
I mean, I'm accustomed to a nature poo. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a part of the skills of being an ultramarathon runner.
I'd choose a
to
sock
use
over a t-shirt.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought of a sock. That's a good idea. And then I've been in a similar situation. I've never thought of a sock.
I mean, hope it wasn't a nice t-shirt. Like, I mean, the level of desperation to like. I'm not really sure how to react to that one.
I would give like a tip, but I don't know if I'll go too far.
What you use it?
Well, I would say if you do a really deep squat, there's less tidying up to do.
You'd like to think that was the
There
solution.
have been times where really deep squat and just pull the shorts straight back up and off you
Someone
go.
naturally meant to do it, right? That's why people get. That's why people get.
It's quite a dangerous place as to how we react, because it does show something about us.
We're
But
normalising
these
it.
are
We're
necessary
normalising
skills.
it. Yeah.
These are life skills. Hey, look, you're in a stressful situation. I know what I can nature poo.
Yeah, we've all been there.
I wouldn't say I like a nature poo, as in I will do one when I need to, but I wouldn't say, oh yeah, I like a nature poo.
Some of the best views I've had have been nature poos. Like, you know, Welsh Coastal Path. It's
You
really
couldn't-
nice.
yeah, but you can also enjoy those views without also doing a poo. So like,
Yeah,
if
no,
you took the
of
poo
course you
away,
can.
it might actually improve the view. Because you could also just do a nice squat with your shorts on and not.
I mean, I wouldn't take myself away to have that view to poo, no. But
No, it's not like there are the best views that you can only enjoy on the toilet.
wow, they've opened up a can of worms with this one.
There we are. Well, if you want to tell us about your embarrassing story, send us a message to podcast@runner.com or send us a voice note or send us a message on Instagram and we will read them out next time.
I feel like it's a dangerous topic for us to be talking about our own stories of like nature poos and ultra poos. You know.
That's very, well, the final dangerous topic is our final question that we like to leave everyone with. We normally refer to a marathon, but you're Lewis. So on your next ultramarathon, you're there on the start line,
Yes.
totally naked. What are the 3 things you'll bring?
I love this question every week.
I think ultra makes it slightly different. It's an interesting nuance.
Skins with pockets.
So skins are shorts, leggings.
Skins with pockets.
Yeah.
Are
Are you going for like the short length ones or the full length ones?
short length ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
You've got to get the tan on the carbs.
Carbon shoes.
Carbon shoes for your ultra.
I thought we were thinking about a marathon. Sorry. Trail shoes.
Trail shoes.
Trail shoes. My mistake. Trail shoes, skins, and whatever nutrition I need. How much nutrition am I allowed?
I think like that's an item, so you can bring your nutrition.
Nutrition.
No Garmin watch, no whip band, no.
No,
That's
follow
right.
the flags. And I go through phase. I'm not as obsessed. I can still go for a run without my watch. I'm not at that point where I can't do that yet, which I'm gonna continue to do.
Do you actually bring a 4th thing? Actually, or is this just what you would have brought anyway?
Maybe that's just me.
Well, there we are.
What about you?
Well, we've
you've answered this one
revealed
already.
ours before.
Okay.
Mine for the marathon
We finessed it.
is
Okay.
Carbon shoes.
Yeah.
My Oakley Sutras
Yeah.
and my Garmin watch. I'm a hairy man, so I don't really need clothes.
I mean, yeah, that's gonna be you're gonna hit the wall pretty hard.
Also, if I'm embarrassed that I'm naked, I then might run faster.
Yeah. That is actually a very good point. I feel like I'd have that level of embarrassment with wearing super tight skins. So
Nice. And you've nailed it with the all-in-one swimsuit.
Oh yeah. All in one like tri-suit. Well, they've talked about that. I seem to have brought my bike box with me everywhere, and it's been the bane of my life. So I might have to do it with a bike box now.
You're gonna
dragging the bike box.
Yeah,
You're taking your bike box on your marathon.
it's caused me so much pain the last few weeks. That bike box. That I just think it's attached to me whenever I do a physical.
Surely that makes you not want to take it with you rather than take it with you on your marathon.
No, I feel like tri-suit, speed suit kind of vibe.
And then you were carbon shoes. And what's your 3rd thing?
A watch.
A watch.
Okay. Funny, I didn't think of a watch.
That's probably a good.
Maybe.
Well, there we are. Thank you very much for coming on the Runna Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Runner. If you want to train for any running goal, please download the app and don't forget you can use the code Runna Podcast for a 2-week free trial.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, follow, do all of that nonsense, and we'll be back here next week. And if you want to be featured, send us your embarrassing running story. Either send us a voice note on Instagram or send us an email to podcast@runna.com so that we can have a good laugh at your expense in Runna HQ and share it on one of the next episodes.